All right.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Let us find out where this goes.
What? Yo. Oh yeah, I'll take a burger. That sounds good. Okay. Laters.
Kill him.
Oh, did you want something?
The Matrix was a film that absolutely blew my mind out of my face when I saw it in 1999. It's one of those theater experiences that completely burns into your mind forever. It's so rare when a film gives us something that we hadn't seen before, and this one did it several times in the course of one movie. There's several effects that we've always wanted to replicate, but that moment of stopping the bullets in midair is one that always stood out. It's just a really cool visual and not all that difficult to pull off. And of course, we have the latest Matrix film out now, so why not now?
What does that mean?
It doesn't mean anything.
First, we decided to shoot this one on green screen and comp Josh in because comedy.
That's my bad. That's rude.
To place Josh in the scene, we matched lighting by using Neo's frame as a reference and then comped him over a clean plate of the background that we made and placed below. There's no frame without Neo in it, so we did have to create that clean plate, but stuff like this is relatively easy to do with things like content-aware fill. And Thompson was able to replicate elements that were behind him, like this logo here, by finding it in a different frame and working it in. Now for the keying, we've got a few green screen tutorials already, but for this, it was nice and easy. We just masked a rough shape around Josh to isolate him, boosted the mask feather slightly, and then used the key light effect to select an area of the green screen and just altered these settings until we got a decent key. Then we used a curves effects to add brightness and contrast, as well as a hue and saturation to alter our colors, and another curves on top to closer match the warmer green tone of the Matrix scene he's being placed into. For the bullets, we're going to create a solid layer as well as a camera, and on the solid layer, we're going to apply Element 3D. Inside of Element, we choose to use just a cylinder primitive as the bullet since the backs will be facing the camera. We rotated it and increased the height and chamfer to smoothen the cap and used a metal material with a goldish color. Changing the environment map to something more detailed will add more interesting reflections, of course. Then we duplicated the group twice and changed these to group 2 and 3. Back in After Effects, for now, we're going to disable group 2 and 3 to hide them. Then we'll change the group 1 particle replicator shape to 3D grid. These bullets are too big right now, so to help see what's going on better, under particle look, we'll decrease the size to around 1. For the number of bullets, we chose to go with 9 in grid X and 5 for Y and Z. Increase the shape scale to cover the amount of area you want. Depending on this size, you may want to add more or less bullets. We also changed the Z and Y scales individually to shorten the shape, and you can alter the rotation values if you want to change the angle to closer match your shot. Under Replicator Effects, we have some scatter controls. Change these values to make the grid pattern less uniform. Change X, Y, and Z positions if needed depending on your framing, and you can go through the random seed value to find different randomized patterns. Under Group Utilities, copy the group and paste it into Group 2, which will automatically re-enable visibility. Now we have 2 exact copies of this mass of bullets. We're just going to move the Z position to be placed behind our camera view. This will act as our starting point for the bullets. Go to the animation engine dropdown, swap Group 1 and 2, and check Enable. Changing the animation value transitions the bullets from Group 2's position into Group 1, but it's kind of happening left to right as a whole, so boost the randomness so that each bullet travels individually. And to get more of that Matrix freeze look, we lowered the smoothness too. At the start of the shot, keyframe the animation at 0 or low value, then move forward and change the value to 100 to complete the animation. And we press the F9 key to easy ease this. To add some further subtle motion, you can keyframe the Group 1 Z position and easy ease the last one too, so that there's some slight momentum rather than the bullets suddenly just stopping completely. Now, because we have Josh lowering his hand in the same shot, we're going to be using the third group to animate the bullets falling. Paste the same group properties that we copied into Group 3, and this time change the Y size to 0 and move the Y position down out of frame to act as the bullets on the ground. On the frame he begins to lower his hand, we will keyframe the animation engine start group, move forward 1 frame, and change it from Group 2 to Group 3, as well as setting a keyframe for the animation. Then move forward and change the animation amount to have them fall out of screen. You could change the smoothness too so that they fall pretty similarly. Just remember to also keyframe this to not affect the beginning of the shot animation. Under render settings, we can change things such as environment rotation, which will affect reflections on the bullets, as well as change the lighting. We added a few of our own After Effects lights to add some extra highlights too. So now we have this in here and moving, but there is more to do to get it to stick into the shot. But before we get to that, I want to thank our sponsor, Milanote. Milanote is something that we have been using for about 2 years now, and something that we have shown on the show several times. It's one of my go-to apps for organizing ideas and building projects in the development stage, and one that I use to do things like building out my stories, storyboards, and breaking down other stories for some film studies, like I did on the show with Annihilation and The Ring. The best part about Milanote is that there is a free version that you can get started on right now. Of course, there is a paid version that gives you more, but the free version is really great. The thing that I've used it the most for is organizing all of my concepts and where they are at the time. Are they in the idea to get to soon stage, one that I'm developing the story of right now, or one that I'm actively writing? Then inside of there, I can build out my ideas, my structures, the characters, and so on. And then the app they have is pretty great too, because I can toss that open at any time and throw in a new idea, which we all know that when you're building out a new idea, you're constantly getting those lightning bolts. I can also create a research board here and leave notes and links to come back to. Or in production, like with There Comes a Knocking here, I can build out looks for locations, wardrobes, general looks for my cinematographer, and again, even build out my boards in here. And I'm able to keep all of this very organized thanks to their boards method. You can drill down into things to keep it separate, which is exactly how I like to work. And they just added a latest feature which allows you to draw on images right in the app as well, which is going to be incredibly helpful. Again, you can give this a shot for free in the links in the notes below, so check it out for yourself. It really is an excellent way to build out your ideas and convey them to others.
Yeah, I'll take a burger. That sounds good.
Jumping back in to get everything nicely glued together, the first thing we're gonna do is switch on motion blur and increase the samples to not get this lower shutter look. Then we'll drop on a curves effect and a tint to grade better into the scene. And if you're getting any aliasing, you can increase the element output, multi-sampling, and super sampling. With the After Effects camera, we can enable depth of field in the camera options. To help see better, you can increase the blur level and change the distance to see where the focus area is. We want the ones closest to Josh to be in focus, and then we can lower the blur level back to 100. If you want to add some faint displacement as the bullets fly in, you can do this by duplicating the camera and bullet layers and change the motion blur shutter angle, which gives a longer motion trail. To keep the trail from expanding in from the bullets, we move the layer over to begin a couple frames later. Also, to make these more visible, we increase the curve effects alpha channel. Select both layers and pre-compose to make our displacement map. Create an adjustment layer and use the displacement map effect. Select our pre-comp and change our values for how much or little you want to displace. Then we're going to use a motion tile effect before the displacement with increased width and height output and mirror edges checked to fill any alpha gaps around the edge of the frame. As you can see right now, all of our bullets are displacing rather than just the trails. To fix this, go into the pre-comp and in element render settings, there is a camera cutoff option. Changing the camera far plane toward our camera will basically create a Z-depth cutoff where anything in the element seen beyond that point won't be visible. We can try to line it up until we no longer see any static bullets and only the trails remain. This may cut off the head of some of the trails, but it works well enough to isolate them for a displacement effect, giving us this. And if you decrease the motion blur samples in the pre-comp, it can kind of simulate the Matrix bullet ripple look. Also, because the bullets are instances of one model, it makes it really easy to replicate the model with something else and retain the animation. But after that, the final thing to do was to place the shots in the edit, and when I did, I noticed that the shots from the Matrix were softer than ours. Our shots had that overly sharpened digital look. So I toyed around with a few different methods to correct this until I finally landed on adding a blur set to around 3 and then some sharpening after that to bring the edges back a bit. And that gave me the look I was after. But that's it, our take on the bullet stop effect. And now that we've opened the Matrix can, I'm itching to do more techniques from that film. So if you have any that you want us to cover, drop that in the notes below. And until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.